Fight! Oh, fight! Oh. In September 2007, we saw monks leading protesters peacefully against the repressive Burmese government. We saw those monks being arrested, and then we saw a complete blackout of the press and of communications from inside of Burma. What a lot of Americans and foreigners don't realize, however, this struggle has been going on for 50 years. Inside the borders of Burma, there are 8 separate ethnic minorities which have been subjected to genocide by the government. The Shan State has declared their own state. They have their own government and their own army, and they've been waging a defensive war against the repressive government, waiting for the world to come and help them. They're hoping someday to achieve autonomy. Usually, my show is about fighting in a ring, but today we're going to learn about people who are fighting for their lives. In the movie Rambo IV, Sylvester Stallone pretends to go into Burma with one of the ethnic armies. This wasn't pretend. Home! Home! The colonel asked me to teach hand-to-hand combat training to the men. Now, when I was in the Army, we were still using the old manual, which I believe they got from the film The Sands of Iwo Jima with John Wayne. But I had to come up with some new techniques based on modern training. In training soldiers, I had to keep in mind that first of all, they weren't athletes with years to prepare. The techniques had to be simple to learn and to apply. Second, they had to be effective. And third, they had to deal with situations which might arise in the context of a military scenario. Although some question if hand-to-hand combat fighting ever actually comes up on a modern battlefield where people are shooting at each other, there are some very practical reasons to teach unarmed combat to soldiers. One obvious practical application is the case of capture. A prisoner or hostage may be able to use the training to overcome his guards and free himself. Also, in a commando raid type scenario, soldiers could use these techniques to silently subdue the sentries on watch before infiltrating the enemy position. Finally, there's a huge psychological component to barehanded fighting. In training, you can't let soldiers shoot or kill other soldiers, so we don't know how exactly they'll perform under fire. But by having them spar and kick and beat each other, we can release that killer instinct, the side of the human psyche which is capable of doing violence. Since I had a limited time, I wanted to keep the technique simple. In the modern world of self-defense, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and ground fighting techniques, which are perfect for the ring, have come under criticism in the street fighting context. Opponents feel that going to the ground is not a good idea on the street or in combat because you can only fight one person at a time and you expose your back. In other words, while you're wrestling with one opponent, his friends could come up behind you and kill you. While I'm inclined to agree with this estimation, I also agree with grappling proponents who say that nearly all street fights go to the ground. A typical street fight, or probably a fight for life and death, will start with 1 or 2 swings being taken, followed by 2 men rolling around on the ground trying to kill each other. So I support learning grappling as a means of self-defense or for combat. But I think the emphasis should be put on stand-up grappling, throwing your opponent but not going to the ground with him. If he isn't expecting it, hopefully he cracks his skull on something. Champion. The Shan people originated in China. For years, I'd heard rumors that one of the cultural elements they brought with them was their own brand of Shan Kung Fu called Lai Tai. Lai is the Shan word for fighting, and Tai, T-A-I, not T-H-A-I, is the name for the Shan ethnic group, so Lai Tai just means Shan fighting. Lai Tai looked very much like Chinese Kung Fu. In fact, I think I recognized one of the forms as being something I'd learned when I studied in the Shanland temple. The forms moved in circles, which again is probably more similar to southern styles than to northern styles of Kung Fu. After several men demonstrated the unarmed forms, the same men stood up and performed with the long stick. I've seen Southeast Asian stick fighting in Thailand and Cambodia. They use a single heavy staff as opposed to the thin, light, flexible staffs used at the Shaolin Temple. Although the Shan weapon was probably a more practical, more durable weapon designed to be used on the battlefield and for defending against heavy metal swords. Once again, the movements look like Shaolin stick fighting. Where the Burmese, the Khmers, and the Thais practiced kickboxing, the Shans practiced Lai Tai. This beautiful art was clearly designed for demonstration and not for combat. The difference in the two styles of martial art demonstrated that the Shan were not warlike by nature. Instead, they were a peace-loving people, pushed by a repressive government to a point that violence seemed the only way out. Even the worm will turn. If you've never seen Lai Tai, it's because the Burmese junta keeps the country locked up tight. I hope someday we can spread this Shan treasure to the world. Oh yeah, if Sylvester Stallone hears this, I hope you'll contact me. Any word of encouragement from him would help these people continue their fight against the overwhelming power of the Burmese junta. So Sly, if you're out there, please at least send us a message, give us a phone call, something. These men really respect you, and your encouragement could mean all the difference between victory and defeat. I'm Antonio Graceffo from Shan State, and this is Martial Arts Odyssey.